Hey guys, my name is Ben, or Bench, or Bench Cubed, or the BC Bros, and I'm here today to express my feelings as what I would now refer to myself as a more developed and experienced programmer. So it's come to my attention, and I've always kind of been aware, that my early tutorials on this channel were of insufficient explanation, knowledge, or good convention in any form on my part. And I'd like to talk today about some of the some issues, and just generally talk about what this channel has done, and how I now feel about what's happened because of this channel. So I'm going to start out as just talking about my starting, I guess, career as a programmer. So I started out as about 11 or 12, and I wanted to develop programming after having an interest in like Redstone in the game, obviously Minecraft. And I realised that through learning Bukkit, I could grasp a good understanding of the language of Java and all the networking and that side of thing. And so it took me a good few months to even cover like the basics of how to even program in Bukkit. And obviously there's like, the New Boston and My Bringback and stuff who provide like in-depth tutorials that explain very clearly Java and stuff. But to find a tutorial that was clear on providing Bukkit explanation was almost impossible. And so I thought, as a young child, as a youngster, I thought that I should provide a service that's I found impossible to find, and that's how to make a Bukkit plugin was formed. So I was at the age of about 12 when I started making these tutorials. So I was young, and I believed that I could like help people with their programming, and that's all I aimed to do. I aimed to help people with their programming in Bukkit development. I myself was an inexperienced, I wouldn't even call myself developer, I was still learning at the time. So I do feel, however, I've made a difference within the Bukkit community, despite any negativity that may be thrown in my direction. So I've had many people contact me throughout the years, telling me what a difference I've made to their lives within programming, and how I have inspired and changed people's lives and made a difference, and how they now work for large hosting or servers, and they've extended what I've supplied, and they've grown on the basic foundations of Bukkit that I supplied. And to say I've taught these people falsely would be, correct. But as far as I can see it, I also inspired and enthused people to want to do this as a young, 12-year-old. It shows that you can do stuff no matter what your age. However, what I would like to talk about, really, is that I am at no point here is expecting people to think that the teaching I did on my part was I taught correctly. But what I aim to do is to hope that you can appreciate that I too understood what I did was wrong. And if anybody was to ask me who they should learn Java or Bukkit from, I would never point them down the twisting alley of bug reports that are my tutorials. But instead, there's people like PogoDev that provide far more sophisticated understanding of the Java language conventions and Bukkit language and conventions. So the reason I chose to actually make this video is I recently found a post on Spigot entitled "Why You Shouldn't Recommend the BC Bros." The author of this post, Saint X, addresses the following points, which I'd like to follow up on. So he says that I have disregard for standard Java naming and coding conventions, which is completely reasonable and completely justified. He says that I fail to poorly explain the basic Java and Bukkit conventions, which again is completely reasonable and justified. And to provide further context to this, as stated in the above synopsis of my life, I was also unaware what I was doing, so that is completely true. He also quotes, "I was more and more convinced that he had little to absolutely no idea how to properly code in Java," which again is more or less true up until the later episodes, where I was like pulling teeth at what to make videos for, and that's completely true. And I show poor examples of Java knowledge throughout the series, which again is true up until where I kind of was later in the thing. So Saint X states in his notes that section that a lot of this post is written under the presumption and impression that Ben intends on teaching you Java. So this was my intention, and later on in the series I became complacent and lazy in my teachings. I assumed that I had taught everyone clearly earlier in the series, whilst obviously knowing I haven't, but suppressing this idea in the back of my mind so that I could continue to churn out the tutorials, which people following the series may not have any idea what's actually going on because of the poor teachings earlier. I feel one of my greatest problems was the assumption that as I progressed in my learning throughout making these videos, others also progressed as I progressed in my learning. So my ignorance led me to believe that I could make these tutorials, yet I do not regret making the tutorials. As well as helping large numbers of people, I also learnt on my journey through the series myself as a developer. I felt empowered by my subscribers to continue with the series, and have inspired many to pursue in a career as a developer. I've created this video to attempt to silence the hatred that seems to be flowing in my direction towards my tutorials, and I feel people assume I'm ignorant to the fact that these videos I created in my early days as a developer were intentionally bad, and this isn't the case. A comment on the post mentioned above stated that I only cared about the money, and this too is far from the truth that you could possibly imagine. Through a career as a developer, I've made copious new friends. I have learnt myself. I have developed as a person as well as a developer, and I feel that throughout my career on YouTube, it has helped me to an extent I can't even possibly begin to describe. I always aim to create videos that abolish the struggle which I faced as a 12-year-old wanting to program. And yes, I taught bad conventions and not all of my code was perfect, but all of my work led me to a place where I now have a solid and sound understanding of the language of Java. If I could start again, I would, immediately, but do I regret making these tutorials? Not at all. What I regret most is not sooner attempting to grasp the understanding I needed in order to begin teaching others. I would like to thank everyone who has dissuaded others from viewing my early tutorials, but also would like to urge people to understand that I was unaware of my own naivety in making these tutorials.